Hello everyone. Today I'm talking about musical intervals within a scale. Okay, so it doesn't matter what kind of music you're learning, unless it's percussion. Gotcha, right? If somebody's about to say, oh! So if you're learning an instrument and it's not percussion, which is drums of any kind, there's a scale, right? So the scale that everybody should start with first is a C major scale because there's no sharps and there's no flats. So it doesn't matter if you're learning the flute, if you're learning the guitar, the bass, a keyboard. This is really important. The thing that's difficult when you're looking at the flute, or from most instances, the guitar is probably the most complicated. It's not a visual thing at first. It doesn't make any sense. The keyboard makes a lot of sense and makes things a lot easier. So the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the keyboard today and show you the intervals that are very visual that will help you understand that. I'm not going to play the pitch because I have a harmonium and I could only do it with one hand because of my phone and my limitation where I don't have any fancy gadgets to move the phone the way that I need to. See, this is me holding it by my hand. So I'm just going to go through the notes on the keyboard, what the intervals are, and this will give you a visual idea of how musical notes are laid out within intervals for at least the major scale. I got to start with something. Once you have that memorized and mastered and understood fully, then from there you could add a lot of other things, whether it's a minor scale or different tots if you're doing classical Indian music, and then from there different ragas. So we're going to start with the basics first. I go through the keyboard. At the end, if you have any questions of anything, let me know on here. I also have a book on how to play the harmonium that covers the Eastern and Western styles of music that will teach you specifically for kirtan, okay, which is devotional singing for, you could say, Hindu music for sure. It also applies to anything that is on the keyboard, but it's for the harmonium. The harmonium is a wind-based instrument. Why? Because you have reeds on it, almost like an accordion, but it's not the same. Okay, so from there, this will help you. The book that I made covers everything. It's on Amazon, and I'll put the link below. So if you're learning how to play the harmonium for kirtan or for classical Indian music, that's the book for you to start with for sure, especially if it's for kirtan, because it covers the Western stuff along with the Eastern stuff and blends it together. When you're learning Indian classical music, the Western stuff doesn't really count so much because there are no chords or harmonies within classical Indian music. It's based on the human voice, which is one note at a time, whether it's sliding or gliding, but there's no chords or harmonies. So that's the biggest difference with the Indian classical music compared to the Western music. So I have a bunch of books on Amazon that cover all this. I'll put some of the links below, but let's get into the keyboard and share what it is to decode it. Now let's go to the keyboard where I could decode some of the stuff for you, especially if you don't know anything. The first note of any scale is its tonic note, okay? That's the root note. That is super important. And within a C major scale, that's the C. The perfect fifth from C is G, right? C, D, E, F, G, the fifth note. So when we're looking at the 7 notes of a scale for the C major, we're starting with C, D, E, F, G, and then starts at A, and then goes again, B, C, okay? If you really want to simplify it even more, musical notes only go from A to G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The only difference is it goes either to the octave above or the octave below. All right, so let's get started. Here we are, and let's learn something about the keyboard today, which will help you for all musical type of endeavors, except for percussion. Okay, hello everyone. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about musical notes in general. When you're learning the guitar, it's a lot more abstract for the beginner. I always feel the keyboard is the easiest thing to start with, because if you start from a C, it will give you all the intervals you need. Once you learn intervals within a scale, This will really help you with all types of music. So for instance, it's like, okay, if you don't know anything, it's like, what is this? So have you noticed something with the black keys? You have 3, then there's a gap, then you have 2, then there's another gap, a bigger gap, right? 3 again, gap, 2, same gap, and then 3. So what does this mean? So when you're looking at music, we're gonna start, this is the C note, right? It's the first key of this scale in this octave. So it's the tonic note. So to keep it easy, this first note is on the left, the first left white key of the 2 black keys. This here is not a C, only here, and then 8 notes down, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it repeats. Why does it repeat? Look, it's next to, on the left of the 2 black keys, right? So within a keyboard, anytime you see the 2 black keys, the first note on the left has to be a C. Same thing here. The first note on the left is a C. All right, so this is important to know. This is the frequency or the pitch when you're pressing it that it'll make, which will be a C. Once you go up, this will be considered the next octave, okay? When you're looking at a scale, everything goes in half steps, right? From here to here is a half step. From here to here is a half step, half step, half step. There's no black key in the middle, but from here to here is another half step, 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 and then the next half step is the next octave for C, okay? This is more visual than the fretboard on the guitar, okay? So this is important to start to memorize and study. So what letters are part of musical notes? So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then again, C, but in the octave above. Okay, so when you're looking at the white keys, these are all considered pure notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So nothing is sharp or flat within the C scale. This is important to know. Okay, when you're looking at intervals, what makes a C scale, right? So from here to here, how many half steps is that? Did you say 1 or 2? The answer is 2, right? So you have a half step and a half step. 2 half steps equal, guess what? A whole step, right? So without having to count, you go, so you got 1, 2 half steps. So you just go from here to here is a whole step. Now to the next one is what? A half step or a whole step? Again, it's a whole step, right? Because you got 2 half steps. From here to here is what? There's no black key in the middle. So that's a half step to the next note. Then it's again a whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. This is important to learn when you're learning intervals for the C scale, right? This will work for everything, but this is a little bit easier for now. So from here, right, you got the tonic note, which is C. Next is a whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, and then a half step to C, starting again. I know this is boring, but this is super important. It's easier to see it here on the keyboard than it is visually in the beginning on a guitar fretboard of the neck. So these intervals are really important to have down to understand it. You only have, how many notes do you have in any given key? So if C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So the 8th note is really the next octave, which is 1 again. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes are in the scale. The next note, which is the 8th note, is the octave above for the C. This is really important to know your musical intervals for you to learn how to play scales. And then from the scales, that will give you chords. For easy way to look at chords, with the C major scale, because that's what it is, if you go from here, here, and here, right, you're skipping a key, this gives you a C chord. What is this? C, E, and G. That's a C major chord, right? So this will start to show you your chord intervals and how to play them. And of course there's inversions. Once I get to here, I'm back to C, E, G, but in the next octave. These are important things to start to memorize. And the easiest place to start is always the keyboard. Why? Because it's just very visual and it makes a lot of sense and it's simple. When you look at other instruments, it's not. So if you could start to understand how the intervals are with the half steps and the whole steps on the keyboard, this will help you visualize everything for the guitar, for the bass, and for other instruments. Okay, so hopefully this helps. I will see you soon.